Thanks for clicking through to the second part of our interview with Onicio Leal Neto, founder of Epitrack. Back to Onicio. So when COVID struck, what did that mean for Epitrack? I mean, it feels like Epitrack was built for something like COVID, but so what happened in your life when you mentioned that you had put the business on pause, you're kind of reassessing what's next, and then COVID pops up. So what happened?
Yeah, I stopped to sleep. I was not sleeping anymore because during the days, during the Swiss time zone, I was working in this Swiss project. And during the Brazilian time zone, I was working for Brazilian project. Both projects got me all my time to dedicate, because back in the days, we had to be really fast deploying and implementing the technology that everybody was looking for to tackle epidemics somehow.
When did you know, or when did you take advantage of what was happening with COVID to kind of fire up Epitrack again?
Because our one of the main issues of COVID in the beginning, actually this is still happening, but in the beginning was really tough, was the underreporting of cases. And the approach that we developed in Epitrack actually tackles this underreporting, because we don't need to wait somebody that is sick to get to the health facility and be notified. Giving them a channel to report their symptoms, we can infer if at community-based, if we can have a pool of a cluster of people that might be COVID cases. And at the same time, we started we realized that our approach could be implemented in other settings that we never ever imagined. For example, we never tried to use the participatory surveillance approach to increase the detection rates for COVID cases in local regions. I don't know if you remember, or I don't know if in Canada you got the same problem, but here in Brazil, several local governments had very limited resources for testing COVID. And back into April last year, they had to choose whether they would wait and see patients coming through the door and get tested, or if they would assume a active approach to go to the fields, to the streets, and test people to understand how massive was COVID in that time. But in both situations, they had to use in a very smart way the resources that would be involved. We helped the several local governments to increase their detection rate. Our best case was a city that used to have 3% of detection rates of COVID, and we increased this number to 84%.
Wow.
From 3% to 84%, using the approach that we developed in the academia.
Now, the data gathering relies entirely on the consumer or on the patient to basically volunteer information. But before they even get to the point of volunteering, they have to be made aware of Epitrack as a vehicle to share that information. So how do you get the message out there and engage people and get them to participate?
Yeah. So we learned in previous deployments back in 2014 that a gamification is not the best way to engage people in a health platform. We learned that during the FIFA World Cup and during the Olympic Games. Instead, at this time, we tried to bring really strategic partners for PR and social media. We had the opportunity to work very closely with several seat majors across the country. And that seat majors used to do Instagram lives with us, with the researchers, with the Epitrack team, and discussing the benefits that our approach would bring for the community. Everybody in the first wave in Brazil was really engaged to tackle somehow the epidemic. The bad part about that is since we have this spark at the beginning, but then the priorities has changed. We were not able to keep the that big number of cities engaged over the time. So just a few of them stick to have or to use the platform that we developed in the end.
Interesting. So I don't, I don't know if you've got this problem in Brazil. I'm sure. I mean, it must be a global phenomenon, but of course, there's a percentage of the population in North America that believes that COVID has been invented by somebody to somehow monitor or control the population. So I'm curious, I mean, does that exist in Brazil? And if so, what was the level of resistance for people to get on board and share information on their physical condition?
Yeah, I think in Brazil the scenario is even worse because we have this crazy guy called Bolsonaro, which is the president of Brazil.
Yes.
And this guy is misleading everybody since the day one of COVID pandemic in Brazil, fostering false treatments, fostering fake news, asking people to don't wear masks and things like that, and putting a question tag in the vaccines was another thing that he used to do during his government until nowadays. Sometimes I can see in the media and the news he mentioning something about that, putting some doubts in terms of the origin of the pandemic, or even blaming China, for example, to do that. And that thing created a lot of diplomatic problems in Brazil in the past months.
So did you find as you were deploying the program, did you ever find that attitude was causing people to be resistant to sharing information?
Not actually, at least for our platform. I don't think that we were affected by this, not at this moment. But this is a good question because back in 2016, when we had another political instability here in Brazil because the impeachment, and by the way, that in that moment was the moment that we met each other. In that moment, we were struggling because we were about to launch the platform in Brazil. And at the same time the government was signing our platform, endorsing our platform, but at the same time the government was under impeachment process, and
Right.
that created a really weird perception of individuals, and they started thinking and commenting in, for example, in the reviews of the Play Store and the App Store, things related to the government. So instead of they report bugs of the app, they start in reporting some they are not satisfied by the situation that were happening in that moment.
Oh God. So I mean, we've now gone through 18 months of COVID. You know, every day in the media, you know, we're exposed to information on the spread of new variants. So surely this 18 months has really been a validation for Epitrack. How has that changed where you're at with the business, and what does it mean for you personally?
Well, I think this entire situation of COVID showed me that maybe pause for a moment the effort with entrepreneurship and back to academia full time. Maybe this could be a good moment because right now we don't have different perspectives about the future on COVID or even for other diseases, and the academia is needing more efforts to do that. So we can see a huge growth of research related to epidemics and pandemics concerns. But I would say that we need more just to accelerate more these activities in order to be prepared for the next pandemic that will happen in a few years. And just to conclude, maybe I need to stop again. I need to pause again my role as entrepreneur and be focused again in the academia, just to realize what could be done to come up with other modern solution for the next situation.
Now, the reason that I created the this series was because I was I found that that the kind of human decision making process of entrepreneurship and in business was underreported. So much, first of all, there's a lot of business gets a bad rap, which is remarkable because the majority of businesses are small businesses and account for the majority of employment. So whenever I hear small business or business in general getting a bad rap, I think it's a misunderstood. It's misunderstood as a feature in society. But one of the things that because I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm really interested in the kind of the trials and tribulations that people go on, because most entrepreneurs I've interviewed, it's really about self-actualizing a vision that they have for themselves. And I remember when we met, I mean, you were a finalist out of, I think the field was 3,000 companies that had applied. You were a finalist, one of 30 that was in the running for $1 million in investment from the Chivas Foundation. Now, 5 years down the road, you're considering pausing the business altogether and going back to academia. And I'm just, it's a very personal question, but I'm curious, was it the kind of the up and the down of the business that's causing you to think about returning to what your original focus was? What is it that's causing you to think, again, after COVID, which was such a proof point for a product like Epitrack, what's really causing you to go back or consider going back to academia?
Yeah, sometimes we learned that the happiness is in the end, is in the exit of the business. But for several
Right.
business, maybe the best moment was during the journey, and I believe that Epitrack was the case like that. I was very happy doing what I was doing back in the years, but right now I'm feeling that it's time to pause a bit the entrepreneur role and think more on okay, what's the next impact that I could help to build, and doing that while you are running business is a bit difficult to do. We are about to make this exit for Epitrack. This is not my dream exit that I could have, but I cannot complain because again, maybe the happiness of that Epitrack brought me was not in the end, but it was during the journey.
Do you know, I interviewed another entrepreneur from Thailand who basically turned to a researcher in a university and collaborated with them to bring some of his research to market. Not in a similar space to yours, but certainly under similar circumstances. And he was saying a problem with a lot of university research is it goes no further than the library, and that there are these brilliant ideas that come out of universities that need to be brought to life. And I'm just wondering, as you're contemplating this move back to academia, do you look at entrepreneurship as being something that you'll revisit down the road, or do you think I've had enough of it? I'm happy to go back to university, working in a university environment. Like, do you see yourself as merely continuing the journey to discover the next great idea to bring to business, or is this it for you?
Right now, I don't know. To be honest, I don't have an answer for this question because I don't want to pass again for the difficulties or for the bottlenecks that I had to pass. I think it was enough, at least for at that stage that I was in these last years. But I will not say never, because maybe if if we see in the future an opportunity to help the society, and the only way to scale up this solution would be back into the business again, maybe I could change my mind.
Interesting. My last question is this. So There's a lot of academics like you that obviously through the course of their work discover ideas that they believe may have potential. So if you were to offer advice to an academic that was watching this, that was thinking of launching a venture, what would be the kind of key pieces of advice that you'd offer them that would help them realize the potential of a business idea?
I think one of the most important things is to understand the different timings that academia has from the business market. Because in academia, usually we have 4, 5, 10 years to conclude the research, to get funds. And so in the market, we don't have that time to validate a product and to start making profit of it. And maybe this could be one of the most important points that an academic would face being in a business and running some company. On the other hand, I think the consistency and the methodology that the academics and the scholars are guided by is completely different, but at the same time, it's completely consistent and robust when you are comparing with the startups and things like that. In the market, we don't have time to make experiments, to make a really rigorous process for understanding if that thesis makes sense or not. And the academia takes advantage about that timing to build more consistent assumptions about some problem or some solution.
Right. That is a great observation for sure. The demands of the market and the competitive pressure that you're under is completely different in the world of commerce versus that of the university. So, well, listen, I wish you the best of luck with the venture. If you choose to put it to sleep for now, or if you choose to go on and relaunch it again under new guise, I wish you the best of luck, regardless of whether you become an entrepreneur or maintain your entrepreneurship interest, or whether you focus again on academia. It was a pleasure getting to know you back in the UK, and I thank you again for the time you made today.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks so much for sticking to the end of our two-part interview with Onicio Leal Neto, founder of Epitrack in Brazil. Beyond being a remarkable use of technology and an interesting story in how they try to help the world, the interview is somewhat bittersweet as we hear the uncertainty of what the future holds for this remarkable entrepreneur. The simple truth is, sometimes even the best ideas don't work out. Our best to Onicio and the team at Epitrack on their future plans. Once again, I'd like to give a big shout out to my amazing sponsor, the Innovation Hub at Carleton University, dedicated to helping create leaders like Onicio. Find out more at www.carleton.ca/innovationhub, and please remember to hit like and subscribe for more great stories of inspired entrepreneurs.